Happy New Year, folks. This is Abel James, and you're listening to the Fat Burning Man Show. Wanted to make sure that you get the new year started off right, so today I brought in Todd Herman, who's an expert of the mental game, and he's going to share some tips that are going to help you build your confidence, introduce positive habits into your life, and improve your performance, whether you're an Olympic athlete or a desk jockey. Now, before we get to the show, I wanted to let you know that we have a few New Year's specials. Firstly, I've opened up a few more spots in the Lean Body community, which is my personal coaching site, where you get my ebook, The Wild Diet, as well as a 30-day fat loss system, a video training course, as well as email coaching from me and my research assistant, Chris, to help you meet your health, performance, and fat loss goals. So I've opened up a few spots at the beginning of this year. You can get everything when you sign up for $1, which is normally $97 a month. So if you're interested in joining us, hop on over to leanbodycommunity.com, or you can go to fatburningman.com and check out the show notes. And there's been a lot of positive feedback about the cookbook I did with George Bryant. You can check that out at cavemanfeast.com for New Year's weekend. The next 48 hours, we're going to be offering that for 60% off. So if you want to make the best pulled pork of your life, that's the place to do it. George actually just surprised me. After we visited him out in California after the holidays, I got to my doorstep and the UPS man came and handed me a big box with a crock pot in it with a message from some civilized caveman guy. What a sweet dude. So I'm definitely going to be picking up some pork shoulder tomorrow and making a bucket load of pulled pork. All right, so on to the show. Today's show is with Todd Herman. And Todd has helped over 12,000 athletes from 31 countries and 59 different sports earn scholarships, make professional teams, win gold medals, and break records using the secrets of the mental game. Specifically, he works on reducing stress, avoiding game distractions, conquering negative thinking, and addressing poor game planning. So given it's the start of a new year, I think we could all use a little hand in building our confidence and crushing our New Year's resolutions, don't you? It's all mental, folks, so listen up. In today's show, Todd and I cover how you can use the mental game to make your New Year's resolutions come true, how to incorporate visualization into your workouts for killer results, how Todd broke his neck in a freak diving accident and joined the 0.3% who made a full recovery, and finally, how the doozers in Fraggle Rock can help you create positive habits in your life. All right, let's go hang out with Todd. Folks, today we're here with Todd Herman, an expert of the mental game and an advisor to professional and Olympic and developing athletes all over the world. How's it going, Todd?
I'm fantastic. Yourself?
I'm doing great today. So for those people out there who might not know who you are, what's your background and why should we all listen to you?
Great question. My background is I was a college football player and I was also a nationally ranked badminton player. Played a lot of sports growing up. I'm a farm kid that was always kept active by my parents because I probably would have burned down our farm and ranch if they didn't keep me busy.
I believe that.
But when I was a young athlete growing up, I was the type that could pick up a sport pretty quickly, but my attitude and my mental game was the weak part. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't realize it was my mental game. I just, if I was going up against a team or another athlete that I perceived as being better than me or whatever, all that kind of judgment and inner criticism would, basically halt performance and limit potential. And a lot of us have that in some sort of way. And a coach of mine, very astute, very smart person, and is still a good friend, Mr. Henderson, pulled me aside and handed me a book on, leadership and sort of the mental game. And I got engaged in the content, and that book led to multiple more books and research when I was, 15, 16 on developing this, inner game, whether it was visualization or breathing strategies and stuff. And I developed a system for myself, not realizing it necessarily, of finding the zone and getting into the flow state. And I did that consistently as an athlete. And when I finished playing college football, like most athletes, you might get involved with volunteering and coaching and things like that. And I would actually talk to the athletes more about, you don't need to work harder. You're already working hard. Yeah. It's not that you lack the work ethic, or it's not that you're not tall enough or strong enough. It's that it's the 6 inches between your ears you need to work on. Mm-hmm. And so I would just give them strategies, and they would start to get great results, and sort of word spread from that a little bit. And this was not a business or anything. This was just me, coaching, volunteering. And a good friend of mine, I'm from Canada, one of my good friends, Eric Morissette is one of the top NHL hockey trainers, and he runs a big academy in Canada. And he said, geez, you know so much about this mental stuff. Would you mind coming in and doing a workshop with the academy? So I said, yes. And couple of workshops. And again, I'm not getting paid for this. It's just essentially a hobby. But I continued all my research. I just loved it because now I'm a business owner, and my business is only going to grow as much as I do as a human being. And these kids got some great results, and some of the parents came to me and said, hey, how much would you charge to mentor? And that business side of me, I said, well, maybe there's a business here or something. And so I reluctantly set a number, and I continued to do speeches because I recognized that was a great way to share this information. And it exploded. And in 3 months, I had this waiting list of people working with me. And that was basically it. And it's really a blend of, so some people think it's psychology or call it sports psychology. And really it has more to do with just behavioral psychology and neuroscience. I mean, we're built in a certain way. Now, a lot of stuff that gets passed around in the self-help quote unquote world is, we have these beliefs, and I try to get people away from this idea of calling it a belief, like whether it's, if you struggle with weight, or if you struggle with a certain performance threshold that you just can't seem to burst through. And people start to describe it as, well, that's just me. And then they start attaching words to it like, oh, well, and someone says, oh, well, that's just a belief that you have. And a belief is just a word that we're using to describe a certain condition in our mind. It's just a conglomeration of a bunch of nerves and neurons connected together to create a easy form of thinking so that we don't have to relearn who we are every single day.
I like that.
And so, like, I'm trying to get people past this idea of making, change and who we are as a person like mysterious and some big myth. It's not. It's just if you do certain things in a certain way and you don't attach a whole bunch of power of your own power to something outside of you, and you take control of it, you can reach performance changes in your life extremely quickly. It doesn't have to take months and years, and you don't need to go to therapy sessions.
Yeah. Now, so you're the first guest for the new year, and a lot of people are, scrambling to get their lives in order and redo everything, reinvent themselves, really. But I recently read something that it's like 92%, 95%, maybe even 97% of New Year's resolutions fail completely. So what can people do when they actually see something that they want to change about their life, or a new person they want to become? How can they do it, and how can they not fail like most people do?
Well, I mean, that's a fairly loaded question. But here's the biggest mistake I see people make when they're going through setting new goals or setting new resolutions. I'll kind of list off a bunch of them. One is they try to bite off far more than they can chew. And any amount of change, or even who Abel is today or who Todd is today, is really just a product of a series of small, tiny little decisions, tiny little actions, small little nudges that we wouldn't even have noticed back when we started a trajectory of our life. And the example that I give people is, if you and I were walking down the street together and I gave you a huge shove to knock you off your path, you're going to notice it, and you're probably going to dislike it as well. And that's what people do when they try to set up new resolutions and goals and, some sort of new habit change for themselves, is they give their internal kid inside of them that doesn't really like change too much this massive shove, like it's a major jarring event. And immediately that kind of internal talk that we have in our head goes, whoa, this isn't what I'm used to. This isn't, and it tries to maneuver you back into this comfort zone that you were and that you were in. And so the easiest way is, if you were not walking down the street and I slowly started to take a little bit of your ground, it's not necessarily noticeable. It's just sort of me rubbing my shoulder up against you, and I'm maybe nudging you just a little bit. And then slowly but surely, by the process of your trajectory changing, I've now run you off into a building type of thing.
That's cute.
And so if we just look at each day as, okay, well, one small, tiny little action that I can take today that can move me closer to this far off goal that can then become a habit for me. And I'm talking about, so some people who are really overweight and have never established a weight loss or a fitness regimen in their life, what's one small little action that you can take? Now, I know, and you know, that if we have something staring us down in our face every single day, it's noticeable. And it triggers a whole series and cascade of different thoughts in our mind. And so what's one tiny little action? Well, what if you just laid out your clothes the night before, your workout clothes, before you go to sleep?
Yeah,
so
that's huge.
For you, it just stares at your face. No, I'm not saying you have to wake up and put them on. I'm just saying, that's one thing that you can do. Now, I know that usually that cascade will cause you to possibly put them on. I'm just looking for like what's the next step? Okay, so if I put on my clothes, what the odds are that if you put on your workout clothes, you're going to more than likely work out. Okay. Now, don't try and set a goal of working out 2 hours. And this is people trying to bite off more than they can chew. No. Commit to doing like 1 to 3 push-ups the very first time that you're going to work out. Now, I know that if I get you started on doing 1 push-up, now the ball is rolling. All I'm looking for is the ball to get rolling. And plus, if you achieve that one tiny micro goal of doing 1 push-up, the endorphins and dopamine dump that you get because you just achieved it, because your mind knows that was a goal that you set and you achieved it. Now, we're not going to wrap a whole bunch of meaning around it. There might be people here that are, listening to you that are proficient, health, not nuts, but just they're proficient in having great habits.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are health nuts.
And so, so they might look at that and go, well, come on, that's not going to change much. No, but it changed just a little bit. So some people bite off far more than they can do. And so we're looking for just small, little, tiny actions that they can take. And I alluded to one of the really key points of change. And nature is a fantastic example to use as the metaphor. When we take a look at the different species of animals that when they're placed on a brand new continent or in a brand new environment because of continental shift or divide or whatever, they start to adapt to the new environment over the course of a few generations. And so when people go to set goals or make resolutions, the one thing that they fail to do usually is change their environment, create a environment where you have to change. And so what are some of those environmental things that we can add into our lives? Well, one is obviously deadlines. When something happens that is not catastrophic, but is a major reckoning for an animal, it has the deadline. It has to change or else it will die.
Right.
Because, now it's in an arid climate and the heat will, kill it if it doesn't develop less hair or something like that. And so most people don't set deadlines. So there's deadlines that can be set and the mind loves deadlines, just period. It does. It sort of goes, if a person isn't necessarily a proficient goal achiever, when you start setting deadlines, it's just jarring to the mind. It goes, oh, wow, Abel's serious about this, finally, because it's goal-seeking. The mind is a goal-seeking mechanism. That's what it's teleological. It's like that heat-seeking missile.
Yeah.
It's what it loves. It's what it loves. And so when we give clear deadlines and we have a clarity of a goal of like what it is that we're trying to go after, the mind, it's like crack to it. It loves it. Because especially to people who are, somewhat ineffective in their lives, the mind goes, oh, thank God, finally you've given me something, a task that I can work on.
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to you just being completely general with your self-talk, and now I have something specific. And it will go to work on it for you at an unconscious and conscious level. So now you'll start to get ideas, people, places, things, resources to help marshal together to help achieve that goal. And so it's one thing to just think about the goal or think about the deadline. It's another thing to actually put it on paper and have it sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
It's another thing to actually submit that deadline and share it with people that you trust. So again, like the great thing about, your podcast and the people that you attract is it's a community of people that are like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience is that people love to support other people and share and prompt them forward and, continue to see that person develop. And so if you've got a community of people around you, it could be just one person, even share that deadline or that goal with that person. But it's one thing to just share that goal or deadline with the person. It's another thing to also identify what are the behaviors in your past that have stopped you from achieving a similar type goal.
Absolutely.
And then when you say, so I said Abel, so if I say Abel, okay, I've got this 8 pounds around my belly that is really frustrating me. I want to dump it. And here are the things that I know prevent me from making that happen. One is I love soda.
Mm-hmm.
I love soda.
Root beer, right?
Root beer is my vice. And so, if you catch me even going to reach for a root beer when we're out and we're in a 7-Eleven or whatever we're walking into, you got to slap my hand. So I'm giving you an action. I'm helping you to become my coach in that way. The other thing is when I'm at lunch, I would like to really commit to ordering a sandwich and not having breads. Mm-hmm. So if we're out, you can coach me and tell me, hey, your eyes are wandering off that salad page, buddy. Get your eyes back on the salads. And so, just little things like that, identifying where you go wrong. Just identifying that is a major step for people.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're a bad person because of it. Again, like people beat themselves up. No, it's just, again, you made a small decision years ago that caused you to not order off of the salad menu. Could have been because your mom or your dad did, or it's because your brothers always ordered hamburgers and fries. I'm a farm and ranch kid. We love meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
So it's natural for us when we hit a restaurant because dad's going to support the beef industry. We're ranchers. He's not going to order chicken. Mm-hmm. And so I just developed at an unconscious level that same habit. So it's not that we're bad people. So identifying those small actions is a big thing. But do whatever we can to change our environment. Yeah. So there's things like you've probably had other people talk about getting rid of all of those foods in your house that make it easy for you to snack on.
Oh, yeah.
But then it's one thing to replace them or to get rid of them. Nature abhors a vacuum. Mm-hmm. So when we take something out of our life, nature, if we don't do it deliberately, will fill it back up, and it will usually fill it back up with the exact same type of thing that we had in that environment before.
Right.
Which means that you'll get the idea when you're walking down the street to go in and buy that bag of chips that used to be in your home, but then you
don't do it.
Don't do it. But your mind will wander that way because you haven't been explicit with it about what your goal is that you're trying to achieve. And so now we need to fill that vacuum up with the things that are going to help move us towards that goal. And so it could be carrots, or it could be a banana or some other snacks that are going to fill that vacuum.
Right.
That fill that space back up.
And it could even be a gateway drug, right? So it could be one thing that I don't like is diet soda. I don't like any kind of soda. But if someone's trying to transition to something that's more healthful, they'll go from regular soda to diet soda, which is better or not quite as bad, especially if you're not chugging it all day. And then you eventually go to seltzer with lemon or kombucha or something like that. And so it's those little steps that really make a big difference. I actually failed something today. I'm trying to work in after our trip. Todd and I were in Mexico together a few weeks ago. And one of the things a lot of us did was meditate. And I had never really done that before, but it's something I definitely want to work into my habits. And every single day since then, for the past few weeks, I've meditated in the morning. And this morning I didn't. I'm in a new environment. I'm actually at, a lot of you fans out there know George Bryant, and I'm at his house right now talking on his microphone, which is great. But, I'm out of my element, and the day just got out of hand from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't get that time to do it. And knowing that I failed, I'm a little bit cloudy-brained. I don't feel quite as good about where I'm going today. I'm kind of wandering around aimlessly and not being as productive, and just taking that small little thing because, I'd only promised myself that I'd do it for about 2 minutes, and knowing that I can't delay it, like I was doing it in the morning, I didn't necessarily define that to myself that I needed to do it in the morning.
Yeah.
But if I don't, what I'm learning today is that if I don't, it probably won't happen. And I already feel like crap. So it's like,
Yeah.
But if I promised myself that I had to do an hour of meditation a day, I just wouldn't do it.
Sure.
So it's like working in those little habits and learning from them and celebrating the little successes that really starts to change your routine.
So I'm gonna do a little coaching with Abel, everyone, right now. So this is what you're going to commit to, and after the call is within 15 minutes of us hanging up today, you're gonna send me a text message saying, "Hey Todd, I just finished my 2-minute meditation."
Done.
Done.
Easy.
Yeah, and I mean, the great thing about that intention that you have is that it's 2 minutes. It's short and sweet. Now the funny thing is you might just enjoy it so much that it might lead to 5 minutes, or it might lead to 10 minutes. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of research that says, and this is the people out there who have maybe delayed getting into meditation because they think it's an hour to 2 hour long, experience that you need to have every day in order for it to give any sort of benefits. No, there's been tons of research that has shown just 3 minutes a day of, quiet silence with yourself gives you remarkable benefits for blood pressure, for reducing of stress and cortisol in the blood system. And it's like working out in the morning type of thing, how it makes such a massive difference for your body's chemistry throughout the day and your fat burning abilities and things like that. Meditation does the same thing in the morning. So
3 minutes. So I'm 1 minute shy.
Yeah. 2 minutes is better than zero though. But that's such a great goal. It's such a great goal to have, is something simple like that. And so you identified something that's really important. And there's a lot of people, the nature of today's, I guess, working climate is many people travel a lot and they give up this autonomous power of who they are and can achieve to the circumstances that they want to define around them. And one of the strategies because I work with professional athletes and I work with Olympic athletes, and the nature of a professional athlete or an Olympic athlete is that they are constantly on the road, and they would never be able to achieve their goals if they had this idea that, I'm going to be a different place, and so now I can't do the same workouts. Like there has to be a point in a person's life where you go, no, I am the master of my own domain and I can control what I do in my day. But not allowing those thoughts to roll around in your head. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In my experience, because not only do I work with professional athletes, but I do a lot of executive coaching here in New York City where I live now, and work with high performing organizations and stuff. If I see one habit that really high performing individuals have, is that they put their thoughts on paper.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they have to journal every day. I'm talking about things like planning their day out and be very clear, but do it the night before or when they're finished their work for the day. They have a fantastic ability of seeing what their tomorrow looks like, and putting it on paper. And then they are not as easily pushed off of their trajectory for the day like many others who don't have something planned out. And so when you're going off on you've been on a road trip and exciting adventure during the holiday season, if you can define when you're writing it out, you immediately, because your mind is visualizing and it's using imagery and it's using forethought, it can pick up and identify, okay, well, where are there going to be some stumbling blocks for me? And just the act of having that clear thinking happen beforehand, you can come up with the solutions for those problems and challenges that you're going to face as well.
Right.
Thinking on paper is, if there's one habit that I get my clients to, and I had one of my clients that plays he's now with the Washington Nationals baseball team, and we've been working together for a few years. He had said about a year and a half ago, if there's one habit that I love that have implemented in my life is the act of journaling or writing on paper, getting my thoughts out of my own head. Because sometimes when you get them on paper, you can just look at them and go, well, that's just such a stupid thing to think about or to worry about or whatever.
Yeah.
But let's say, put your worries on paper, let the paper worry about it. Just get it out of your head. Or get your goals down on paper, because sometimes just the act of writing it out, you can kind of identify and see, well, is that really clear? Like, is that a tangible thing that can someone else read that goal and know that that's the recipe for my success? Because I mean, a great example of goals is a recipe book. Recipe book without photos, it's still good. It's going to probably get you to where you want to go, but it's even better if you can see the finished product on the next page.
Yeah.
Because then you can work back from there. You can kind of see how all the steps work together to get you this finished result. And setting goals or making change, setting resolutions should really follow a very similar path. But then if you also have a professional chef, someone who's done this before, that's where coaches come in, or mentors, or a community of people who've been there before. Now it makes it even easier, because they can go, no, that's not how you add the sugar into the dish bowl. You just don't dump it in. No, you got to spread it in, because it clumps together. And now they just prevented you, from going through the entire process of baking that cake and then wondering why it didn't show up, because you followed all the steps. But now they know it's because you didn't sprinkle it instead of you just dumped it.
Right.
There's a lot of little intricacies to, achieving, goals for yourself, but having that community and that direct feedback from others, whether it's a mentor, coach, whatever, is a critical step that I perceive people make as a mistake.
Yeah. Having a coach or someone to guide you in the right direction is so important, but it's not just the guidance, it's also knowing that these things are possible. Like you said in that recipe book, to use your example, if you look at the recipe, it's hard for your brain to visualize what that cake or those brownies, probably in your case, I think I remember you like those a lot. That's your kryptonite, also root beer and brownies. So if
you're totally exposing me today, Abel. Everyone knows that. Okay, don't follow whatever advice I give to any of you on the listening to this on when it comes to health issues, I guess.
But everyone has chinks in their armor. I think it's important that folks out there know that even though we're giving advice to people out there, we have just as many troubles as anyone. We have just as many struggles. And so, if you're looking at that recipe and it's just a bunch of text, your brain has a hard time putting that together and visualizing what that's going to look like. But when you see that beautiful cake or those brownies in a picture, you can visualize and, like you said, work backwards. And also when you see that picture, you know that it's possible to make a beautiful cake.
Yeah.
And that is so important for your brain to work with visual cues and then work backwards from there to actually turn them into reality. So why don't you talk a little bit about visualization? It's something that I love and I do a lot of myself. So why is it important, and what does it actually do when you start to work it into your habits?
Well, I can sum it all up in just one simple sentence. If you can't see it in your head, you'll never hold it in your hand.
I like that.
It's almost an impossibility for your mind to give you something in your physical or real world, whatever you want to call it, if you've never seen it in your own head. And that's why people's goals, that sometimes people do achieve a portion of their goal, and then they have this kind of, they don't feel fulfilled with its accomplishment, and it's just because of lack of clarity of thought. They just really didn't give that teleological, heat-seeking part of our mind an exact target of what it would look like. And in my experience too, just the act of, most of us write goals or set, visions or purposes or something like that with ourselves, based on our own limited thinking at the time. And so I always end all of my, intentions or goals that I have for my business or personal life and everything else with, an ellipsis, after I'm done writing the goal, ... this or something better. Because I know that it's my limited ego, this limited intelligence that I'm operating on that is sort of setting this goal. And I don't want to limit my own possibilities by just defining it that way. So I want to send a message to my, my unconscious, some people could call it God or whatever their belief systems are, to, this is what I think I want, but if you've got something better for me, feel free to throw that in there as well. And in my experience, when you drop the domino towards a goal, there is a cascading series of events that happen that run parallel, perpendicular, all these that you start achieving. There's so many other things that start to show up in your life or that you start to achieve along that path that you would have never thought possible. And that's what I think is the exciting part of change is it's this adventure that you're embarking on, because your limited awareness thinks that you're going after this goal, but there's all these other things that are going to show up as ancillary and supporting systems to your life that you would have never thought possible. I mean, when you started your podcast less than a year ago, could you have ever goal set or have ever envisioned some of the things that have, happened because of it?
It's crazy. It's like a snowball. And I think that's a perfect example. So for those of you out there who may not have been listening from the beginning, this podcast is only about 9 months old. And since that's happened, I'll try to just kind of wrap it up as quickly as I can. But I was working in consulting full time. This was just kind of a side thing, a hobby. Now it's I employ people. Not only do I do it full time, I employ people. It's in the top 10 in health on iTunes very consistently, have best-selling books. I'm sitting in a house with one of my best friends who I didn't even know a year ago, all because I decided to create it in the first place. And I never would have imagined all the things that happened after. And it's literally changed my life and my whole life's trajectory. I'm sure what I'm going to be doing 5, 10, 50 years from now is completely different just because of taking that first little step. I didn't have a goal to create a business or replace what I was doing before. I just had a goal to help inspire people and do something that I really believed in. And all of these, like you said too, other people start coming in and helping you along toward the same goal. And that's really the most rewarding piece of that, the community that starts to surround you or that envelops you in your goals as you go through something that you really believe in, and when you follow your passion, it's easy almost. It just happens.
And that's another part of just the whole goal achievement and sometimes I kind of dislike because everyone on this call has heard about goal setting and goal achievement. It's kind of our topic, I guess, today, and I sometimes dislike the terms because I know that it eliminates some people's attention quickly. They're like, God, I've heard it all before. I just want to know how to freaking change or something like that. But you kind of came up with another one of the hallmarks of why some people have achieved some great things in their life, and it's that the goal that they were going after wasn't about them. It was about something far bigger than them. And I experience it a lot with the Olympics because I had one of my athletes that was probably ranked 36th in the world in their particular discipline.
Wow.
And they got a silver medal at the Olympics, and they came out of, quote unquote, nowhere. But the great thing that the Olympics does is it changes the hunger, that motivational power, which is one of the 4 X factors for achieving our potential. And now they're playing or competing for their country. And to some people, competing for their country is just this untapping of internal resources like you've never seen.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, you've never performed. And that's because the meaning of the event had completely changed. When you change the meaning of something, you don't have to change this crap that people want you to think in the self-help world that you need to work on. It's just not change the meaning, and it changes everything. So you wanted to inspire other people to live, a healthy lifestyle. And it wasn't about just your own health. It was about other people's health. And of course now that community of people has something else to rally around and work on with you. And I mean, that's I honestly think that one of my main roles as a coach or a consultant with people is to get them really excited about change, because it's the thing that stops people. Organizations talk about change management, and you move it down to the macro level, and the same thing with human beings. A lot of people just are fearful of change, but when you hear stories of other people and you just it was a hobby for you. It was just one little thing. Is it difficult for you to reach out to the community that you currently had back 9 months ago or 10 months ago and ask, hey, can I interview you about the success you've had with your, healthy lifestyle? No, of course. I'd love to, because people love to share.
Yeah.
And it just snowballed.
Yeah.
Outside of the fact that you've got this fantastic radio voice, which of course appeals to many, many people as well.
Not as good as yours, Todd.
Yeah, right. But I love that, getting people excited about, wow, I never thought that this goal could be something way bigger than what I had started. And you cannot predict it. You cannot where it's going to go. It'll become its own organism. It will take on a life of its own. And that's, when we shared our stories of, when I shared my story about how I got into doing sport performance coaching and peak performance stuff, that wasn't something I just liked talking about it. Yeah. I knew how to do it, and I shared that. And you knew how to lead a healthy lifestyle, but you wanted to learn more, because we don't think that we're the stopgap of information. There's always something more that you can learn. So you just started sharing, and then it blew up from there, because people are attracted to people who are passionate about what they're bringing to the table.
Right. You can't fake that.
You can't fake it. No, you can't fake it.
Now, I did want to talk to you, Todd, also about success in the face of adversity. And we were talking before about your diving accident, which obviously came out of nowhere, and you had to fight back to improve your health without being able to even exercise or really move, because you literally broke your neck. So can you tell people a little bit about what happened and how you made your way back?
Well, last year when I live in New York City, and my wife's sister, they have a place down at the Jersey Shore, and we went out boating for the day, and we always would kind of jump into the water at the same point. It was about usually 10 feet deep. So I used to be a lifeguard and all this kind of stuff, and I dove into the water, did a swan dive in, and there was a hurricane that had come through just a week beforehand, and it moved sandbars around, and it was only the water depth was only just past my knee at that point where I jumped in. And so my head hit the floor of the ocean, and I broke my C2 vertebrae, and I had this like stinging sensation all down my back, and I herniated 2 more discs in the middle part of my spine. And I knew that I hadn't paralyzed myself, but immediately my thoughts were like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, you moron. And so I got up and I just said, hey, we need to go to the hospital. And when we got to the hospital and the doctor did the x-rays, he walked back in and he was a little bit white-faced, and he said, you are the luckiest guy. You should go buy a lottery ticket. 83% of the people with this, or 82% of the people with this injury are quadriplegic. 17.9 or 17.7% are dead, and 0.3% are you.
That's crazy.
And so, I had, neck brace on and all this kind of stuff. And my neck to this day is still it's still weaker. It's been doing rehab, but because of the getting back to the visualization, because of the nature of the work that I do, I knew how important it was for me to control the imagery that was in my mind, and not default into this, okay, the doctor told me I've got a weak neck and it's broken. Yeah. Okay, fine. So that's the truth. So anytime I'm working with clients, is what is the truth and the reality of the situation? I just want the data. What is the truth? Are you, okay, you're 15 pounds overweight. Okay, great. Now we know a baseline that kind of tells a little bit of a story about you, but it doesn't have to be your story forever. But that was it. And I worked on seeing and visualizing a strong, healthy neck. My spine was, all my vertebrae was healed and strong. And, there was just, and I have this funny thing that when I'm injured or something like that, and I teach, it's actually a strategy that I teach, is I have this army of, there is a cartoon show, and I'm going to take some people back. Some people have never seen it, but there was a cartoon show back early in the 80s when I was growing up called Fraggle Rock.
Oh, yeah.
and they had, do you remember the doozers?
Yeah.
Little doozers that would like work on stuff, and they're so in my mind that's actually those are my soldiers in my head. So
That's
those
awesome.
doozers march down to an area in my, and I'm visualizing this and seeing all this happen. So I'm seeing these doozers go to work, and they've got, hammers, and they've got glue or whatever they've got, and they go to work on fixing it. And I would practice doing that at least once every day, and you can do that in 30 seconds when you get proficient at it. But that's what I would see. And I would see a strong neck. I would see myself, turning my neck, and it would be, loose just like it was before, and all these things. And I, came back from that injury exceptionally quickly. The doctors are very surprised by it. And I've got tons of clients that have had the exact same experience with coming back from injuries really quickly. But seeing myself, and also because I wasn't able to exercise or do a lot of motion, I would, spend time just visualizing myself exercise. Now, there was a great study that was done in the mid-1990s by the U.S. Olympic track team. And they brought all the track and field athletes, not all the track and field, they brought their sprinters out onto the field, and they hooked up biofeedback patches to them and had them run a 100-meter sprint and 200-meter sprints. And of course, those biofeedback track all the muscles that are firing in sequence. And then they brought them into the lab, and they had them lay down. They hooked up the biofeedback to the same spots that they had them on before, and they had them visualize them running their race. Now, the funny thing is the exact same sequence of firing muscles went off even when they visualized it, because It's not that their legs are moving, but remember, muscles, bones, everything fire in sequence based on the neurotransmitters and the messages being sent down from the brain.
Right.
And so that's what the biofeedback's picking up. It's picking up those impulses. So the mind, the body doesn't know the difference between when something is real or it's imagined. And so when you're imagining yourself coming back from injury, because there's a lot of people who are active that listen to this, and they always are dealing with nagging injuries, and it's the bane of anyone who's active's life, because we define ourselves so much by the activities that we do. And for myself, it's, you can get into a very depressed state. Most athletes, professional athletes or Olympic athletes, or even armchair athletes who are recreational individuals, you can get pretty depressed when you're not able to perform the way that you're used to.
Sure.
Because it's your identity. It's who you are. But just taking that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it could be 5 minutes of seeing yourself still perform, of running your 5K, or of, doing your set at the gym, or playing racquetball. You don't lose the skill, and the body isn't losing its connection to that activity as well. So that's what I did. I mean, I did that all the time. And I use the same thing for when I'm trying to learn a new skill, or if I want to approach someone that I've never, talked to before. If you just imagine yourself having a very casual conversation with them, that you're going to infuse the intention of that activity will be that much more positive. Yeah. Because there's two things to remember about goals and change and all that. There's the goal itself. So that's the thing. That's the thing that you can hold in your hand. That's the whatever. But then there's the intention that you take to it. So it's the way that you're going to go about doing it. So there's one thing to go on a basketball court and, play and execute the skills. But there's the intention, there's the emotion, there's the attitude that you're taking to it. There's two people in the NBA that pretty much have the same types of skills. They've got that same sort of, they've got that same skill set, but one is really liked and one isn't. And it's because they infuse their activity with a different type of intention and emotion and attitude. So it's very important when we're setting our goals and we're setting up our kind of trajectory for the year. What's the intention I'm going to take to 2013? What's my attitude about 2013 going to be? You took an intention and an attitude towards your podcast, if that, it's going to be a process of great discovery. I'm going to be able to talk to and meet so many great people. But that was the success of your podcast isn't that you did it every single week. That's a part of it. That's the goal. That's the tangible thing. But it's the intention and the attitude that you took to it. It's the way that you are. So remember that too, when what you're bringing to the table, as an attitude, a feeling, or whatever, is incredibly important because it also doesn't burn you out. If you're approaching health, or if you're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to eat more kale," and it's going to be a freaking chore for you. Well, now you've just infused kale with, and it's just kale. You just infused it with a horrible attitude.
Yeah, we talked about this. We love kale.
And but if you said, you know what, I'm going to enjoy what kale gives me. It doesn't give me rot gut like eating hamburgers every single day do. And I know this because I love hamburgers.
Yeah.
But when I eat kale, I have, magical amount of energy throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the thing, there's the little habits that you're going to change, but then there's how you're going to approach it, your attitude, all those types of things.
That's right. And that's so important to focus on the positive instead of the negative. I think especially with fitness and I guess nutrition too, so many people focus on the negative. This is going to be a chore. It's going to be so much work. I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to have to lose weight or fit in this dress or whatever. But just to use an example, a lot of especially when I'm traveling, I don't have that much time to get in a workout. And so I usually do sprints, which is the best bang for your buck, in my humble opinion, aside from maybe burpees.
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but sprints, the whole idea of them is that they're supposed to be as hard as they can possibly be, because that's how you get the most benefit out of the littlest amount of time, just going really intensely. And so one thing that you can do, and I find myself doing this from time to time, is especially if it's a really hot day, or if I'm feeling sluggish, or if I had too much wine the night before, I'm focusing on, I'll do it 10 times. I'll sprint as hard as I can for 20 seconds and rest for 10 seconds and do it 10 times. So that's only 5 minutes. But I find myself, if I don't intentionally focus on the good things, I'll visualize how hard it's going to be, and be like, oh man, I have 7 more. I've only done 3. And like, if you do that, you're not going to enjoy the process. But if you focus, and you have to keep reminding yourself to do this, if you focus on how you feel at the end, with all of this blood in your muscles and all the endorphins flowing through your body, with sweat pouring off your face, and knowing that you've succeeded and you're going to have a great day following that, then it changes everything. Then you're just all of a sudden breezing through your workout. And it's amazing how different that can be when you focus on the positive instead of the negative.
Yeah, you can either use the hot knife through butter, or you can try to use hammer, and it's a heck of a lot easier to use the hot knife. And that's what, focusing on the gain part of, a goal or whatever activities that you're doing.
Yeah,
that's just awesome. I mean, if people only listen to this last 7 minutes about us talking about the intention and the attitude that you take to it, and you applied that for the next 30 days, is just being mindful of the intention that you're taking to your activity, you'll get a dramatic boost in those positive endorphins and dopamine that we all love to get from the activities that we do. And you brought up a good point, is, people naturally, when they kind of start on a diet, which is a horrible word, but a diet or a fitness regimen, is they immediately start to focus on, okay, well, what am I going to be missing out on? And which is a natural default state of humanity. It's natural for us, because we've got these two brains working at the same time. We've got the pain brain and we've got the gain brain. And people think that setting a goal means it's going to be painful because I have to give up all these things. Okay, well, yes, but what are you going to be gaining? And most people fail in that process of thinking of their 2013 of all of the things that they'll gain. So yes, when you go on when you choose to have a healthy lifestyle, yes, you might not be eating chocolate cake every single day of your life, but what are you going to be gaining?
Yeah.
And most people just stick on, okay, well, now I've got to give up. I've got to give up chocolate cake. I've got to give up root beer. I've got to give up, my brownies and my potato chips and, popcorn. Well, what are you gaining though? What is the gain?
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot trade a chocolate cake for that feeling of walking into a room and seeing people's reactions to how you look and the gait that you have when you walk, because you're just more positive. And then how that infuses conversations with a completely different level of confidence for you, so that you can actually start to achieve other things professionally and vocationally that you never had before. It's really like you can hear Rush Limbaugh's fatness in his microphone.
You can.
I cannot hear Abel's fatness in your microphone.
Even though I use the same microphone as Rush Limbaugh.
Even though you use the same microphone at home, I can hear his fat cells through his microphone.
That's hilarious.
And I can hear his angry, nature in his microphone, But so there's all these other, that's what I love about it, goal achievement or setting new things and, working on the change, that many of us desire about ourselves, like just changing something small.
Yeah.
How just the domino effect is amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Todd, we're just about out of time, but why don't you tell folks out there where they can find you and what you're working on now?
They can find me at the Dunkin' Donuts. No. They can find me at thepeakathlete.com. That's where my main home base is. And if they've got questions about what we talked about today, there's a contact form. They can send in questions, and thepeakathlete.com.
Awesome. Go check it out. I've been watching some of your videos, Todd, and it's really cool stuff, and not just for professional athletes. Everyone has something to learn from your approach. So thanks so much for coming on. You're welcome anytime, Todd. The mental game is super important to me, and I'm sure people out there enjoyed it too. So thanks so much for coming on, and I'd love to have you on again soon.
Thanks, Abel. I was happy to be here.
Right on. Thanks, Todd. If you'd like to hear more from Todd Herman, you can check out thepeakathlete.com, or you can head to fatburningman.com, look at the show notes, and I'll send you right to him. And don't forget, there are just a few spots left where you can join the New Year's Challenge at Lean Body Community, which is normally $97 a month, for just $1, where you get all my books and video training. So head on over to Lean Body Community if you're interested in that. And I'm also very happy to report that we have some familiar faces coming up on the show. Mark Sisson is going to be coming on. We have Leanne from Saving Dinner, and even our old pal Lauren Cordain. So stay tuned. Happy New Year once again, folks, and I'll be talking to you soon. Cheers.